What I'd like to do now is introduce Ernie Lau. Sorry, we couldn't have timed that worse, could we? So Ernie's the manager and chief engineer of the Board of Water Supply, and he's going to kick off our presentation.
Thank you, everybody. This works better. Thanks, Carl. I'm Ernie Lau. I'm the manager and chief engineer for the Board of Water Supply. I've been there since February of 2012. I'd like to just recognize in the past 3 years, we've had a stakeholder group of members from the community all over the island. And there's a couple members here today. Dick Poirier, you're from Mililani area, right? He's out of your community. He's on our stakeholder advisory group. Cruz Vina from the Pearl City area. Thank you for coming. They worked hard to provide input into our master plan, our planning documents, and also worked hard to provide feedback on the water rates for us. Well, thank you, Dick and Cruz, for being here. Brian Andaya, our board chair, wanted to be here tonight, but some urgent business kept him away, so he won't be able to make it tonight. You just have me. I'd like to just start off with a quick introduction of my team here at the Board of Water Supply. This is our 4th public hearing. We've had 3 already. I've never introduced the management team at the Board of Water Supply. First of all, my deputy, she's standing in the back there, Ilan Kitamura. She's the deputy manager for BWS. Here on my left, I have Mike Matsuo, head of our land division. Mr. Joe Cooper is the waterworks controller, so he handles the finances and makes sure that we spend our money wisely and properly. Our IT manager is Henderson, head of a capital projects division, Jason, and our water system operations division, and a resident of Mililani, I'm told, Kevin Ihu. So you can be sure if you have problems with your water system here, Kevin's really going to get on it quick. Annabelle is the assistant administrator for our customer care division. Jennifer is the administrator for our customer care division, so if issues or questions about the bills, Jennifer and Annabelle are the ones to see tonight. Our human resources is Michelle, head of our human resources office. On the side there, with the gray shirt, is Barry Usagawa. He's the head of our water resources division. We also have right here behind Kevin, Mr. Erwin Kawata, our water quality division. So any questions about water quality, Erwin is the person to see. He's our expert. Head of our field operations is Mike Fouquet, back there. They are responsible to handle repairs of the pipes. When there's main breaks, they maintain the pipes and the hydrants and the valves in the system. Our executive support office, Robert Morita. He works with me in the manager's office. Our information officer is Kathleen Elliott Pahinui. She's from the North Shore. She's our information officer. So that's really, did I miss anybody, Ellen, from the BWS team? Senior managers. And we have a lot of BWS employees around the room here, and our consultants from CDM Smith here tonight. Our vision is Kawai Ola, water for life. And all life depends on water. The Board of Water Supply delivers safe, dependable, and affordable water to your tap. Delivering safe, dependable, and affordable water is really the mission of the BWS. And the Board of Water Supply, if you don't know, was actually created back in 1929. So I think we've been in operation for about 85 years now, I think. One thing about the BWS, we're part of the city government, but we are what we call semi-autonomous. So we have a water board made up of 7 members, 6 of whom are appointed by the mayor with the approval of the council, and 1 is the director of the State Department of Transportation. They serve as the setting policy. They're also responsible for adopting water rates necessary to take care of the water system. And because it's very important, BWS is financially self-sufficient. We have no property tax to operate. Basically, when all of us, including myself, pay our water bill, that money goes toward the operations of the water system and paying the staff for the staff that are needed to operate the water system, but it's also used to reinvest into our infrastructure to replace old pipes, fix pumps, fix water tanks. So it all comes from mainly water rates and charges. Really, there is no other source of revenue, so we have to operate like a business. Next, please. What it takes to get water to your home, and I know every morning you wake up and some of the first things you do is you open your faucet in your bathroom to wash your face, or you have to do the other things that are related to getting up in the morning. But it does take water to get to do that. And the question is, what is needed to deliver that water to your home? It's really a large and complex water system. It starts up in Mauka in the mountains where the source of our water really is there. 13 tunnels, these are horizontally dug into the side of the mountain, and water flows freely out of the lava rock up there. It all originates with rain falling on the mountains on our watersheds. We also have around the island, including here in Mililani, groundwater wells and pumps that pump water from underground aquifers, and they pump it into the pipes. And in central Oahu, in this area, because of what happened with pineapple and sugarcane cultivation in the past, remember when the pineapple Dole Del Monte was in operations? They used different chemicals to deal with pests like nematodes, and that actually seeped down through the ground, over 500 feet through the ground into the underground aquifers. The aquifers are actually in the lava rock itself, and we've been treating that for almost 30 years now, using large amounts of charcoal to filter the water to remove the pesticide from the water to make it safe for people to drink. So the 13 treatment facilities are primarily in this area and also in the Waipahu Ewa area. The water then flows to 171 water tanks around the island. These are large concrete tanks with roofs. Some of the people that live on higher elevation, we have to pump the water to your home. So we have 192 booster pumps around the system. It's all connected with 2,100 miles of pipeline with the average age of 40 to 50 years. And we have about 300 miles, approaching 100 years old in our water system. There are fire hydrants in the system. We have 21,000 fire hydrants to provide for public safety. And it flows out to our customers, 170,000 customer accounts around the island. All of you here that get a water bill, you're a customer of BWS. Our average day pump, what we provide to our community on average is 145 million gallons a day, and we basically serve almost 1 million people island-wide. But the big question for us is, are we prepared to provide safe, dependable, and affordable water for the next generation? Remember that water, all life depends on water, and with that effort, to answer that question, we actually embarked on 4 years of very intense planning to develop a long-term plan, what we call our Water Master Plan, that looks ahead 30 years. It looked at the entire water system that we described earlier. It identified the necessary improvements we need to make to this water system to keep it running for our community. And it also balances the cost of doing that with the issues of affordability for our customers. Next, please. Some of the findings of the Water Master Plan. One of the findings is that we, over the next, out to the year 2040, we need to develop new drinking water sources, primarily for Ewa, Waianae, and Honolulu areas. Next. We also need to do more work on our pumps to provide for additional pump capacity to ensure that water is provided to you without interruption, except when there's a water main break, which is the next slide here. But we do have, with the 2,100 miles of pipeline, we have challenges with deterioration because of age, corrosion, and soil conditions, and we have more than 300 main breaks a year. Last year, I think we approached 350 main breaks, almost a break a day. Next, please. One of the great stories is water conservation on this island. Since the 90s, on a per person basis, you are using actually 30 gallons less per day than you did in the 1990s. And that's a great story because through water conservation, more efficient fixtures in our homes, we've saved on average about 12 million gallons of water a day. But we still need to do more there. Next, please. Some of the issues, and there's an area there we talk a little bit about climate change. We may expect that rainfall could decrease over time, especially in West Oahu, especially along the Waianae Mountains. But we also might see that the intensity of storms may increase as the planet starts to warm up. And we saw in 2015, 15 tropical cyclones come across the Pacific in one season. I tell you, that year we almost never rested. Every few weeks there was another hurricane headed toward Hawaii. So we need to do work to diversify our water supply to adapt to climate change. Next, please. One of the findings also that watersheds are critical. Watersheds are like the sponge Mauka to capture the rain that drops on our mountains and to allow it to percolate and seep down through the lava rock. And those are going to require more care and conservation. Next, please. And we find that over the next 30 years, we're going to invest about 800 plus projects. These are water system improvement or infrastructure projects island-wide, totaling about $5.3 billion in today's dollars. Next, please. In the next 10 years, $500,000 toward reliability and resiliency. These are mainly improvements to our pumps, our treatment systems, our water tanks, more investment in pipeline replacement, $876 million over the next 10 years. Also more investments on an annual basis in the area of water conservation and also protecting our source of water, our watershed. Next, please. Really, our target is to annually replace 12 miles of pipeline a year to reduce main breaks. If you look on the diamonds represent the existing main breaks in the past few years that we are experiencing. The blue line is the status quo. If our pipeline replacement program stays at about 6 miles a year being replaced, then we can anticipate or project out into the future that the number of main breaks, that's the blue line, will go up, and we don't see that coming down again. But if we ramp up from 6 miles in the next 10 years and start to replace on a yearly basis 21 miles of pipeline, the orange line is what we're projecting to happen. That over time, and it won't happen overnight, the number of main breaks will come down and be around 250 a year. And if we sustain that 21 miles, which is only really 1% of our 2,100 miles, we can try to bring main breaks down to a little over 250 a year. And the board stressed that that was very important. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dave to talk about water rates. CDM Smith has worked really hard with us to develop this rate proposal, and we're really seeking your input on these rates. Thanks, Dave.
Great, thank you. Okay, so talking about rates, remember that we're talking about water rates, not sewer rates. So when you get your water bill, you're paying both the water bill and the sewer bill is on there also. The reason for that is that the Board of Water Supply provides billing services for ENV, for the Department of Environment for the city. So that's why you see them on the same bill, but the Board of Water Supply doesn't have any responsibility for what's on that sewer bill. So just wanted to clarify the sphere of influence here on water rates. So water rates are being proposed for a 5-year period beginning in July of 2018 and extending through 2022. There are no increases in water rates being proposed until July of 2019. Those increases, which we'll go through in more detail, are expected to generate an additional $60 million of money over that 5-year time period. So the Board of Water Supply is committed to do a number of things with these rates, and I'll go through each of these in detail. But in overview, first one is raise rates gradually. Nobody likes to see a big, huge increase all at once and that sense of rate shock. So rates increasing gradually. Provide a low-cost essential needs tier that rewards conservation. and at the same time encourage conservation by the highest water users by sending a price signal so that if they use less water, they can see the difference in their bill. They'll have a lower bill. We'll talk a little bit about the subsidies that single-family residential customers benefit from right now and who's paying those, and what's being done to address that, and that really supports the idea of everybody paying their fair share. So the essential needs tier. This is a below-cost rate for the first 2,000 gallons of water usage per month. All residential customers will get this rate. And just to put it in perspective, about 10% of the BWS bills every month that they issue are for 2,000 gallons or less per month. So there's a lot of customers out there that are actually using 2,000 gallons a month or less. Towards the end of last year, the Board of Water Supply did a web-based survey for customers of proposed changes to water rates, and over half the people responding to that survey indicated pretty strong support for this type of a change, a low rate to ensure affordability and reward conservation. Now, I also mentioned adjusting the rate tiers to financially motivate or send a price signal for water conservation. The current rate structure is a tiered rate structure, and I'll go through that with you in just a moment. So this would continue that rate structure. Basically, the more water you use, the more you pay for that additional increment of water. Now, if you look at your water bill right now, there's two parts to it. There's a monthly charge, or what's called a billing charge, and there's also the usage charge. So the monthly charge right now stays the same, and it's currently $9.26 a month. And then there's the part of the bill that's based on how much water you use. So for the part that's fixed, this monthly charge, right now it's the same for all customers regardless of the size of their water meter. But in reality, it costs more to service and maintain larger water meters. So again, in terms of that concept of people paying their fair share, what's being proposed here is customers that have larger water meters are going to pay a larger cost per month to reflect those additional costs associated with the larger meters. The good news for the vast majority of Board of Water Supply's customers who are single-family residential customers and have either a 5/8 or 3/4 inch meter is that they have that lowest cost category there. You can see it's $9.26, and it will raise to just over $12 by July of 2022. For folks with larger meters, which are typically multi-unit residential houses, multi-unit residential buildings, businesses, hotels, things like that, they'll see larger costs. 8-inch meters might be for a shopping center or a hotel. Actually those amounts there are a very small percentage of their overall water bill because they use so much water to start with. So single-family residential rates now, this is the part of your bill that varies with usage. And in the blue there, you can see the existing rate structure. The first 0 to 13,000 gallons per month of usage is charged at $4.42 per 1,000 gallons. And then usage that's from 13,001 gallons up to 30,000 gallons per month, that water is charged at a little higher rate of $5.33. And then for customers who are using more than 30,000 gallons a month, which is about 3% of the Board of Water Supply's single-family residential customers, for that amount of water, they're paying $7.94 per 1,000 gallons. So I mentioned the essential needs tier. So as we move into that lavender area, this is how the tiers and rates are proposed to change. The first 2,000 gallons of usage would start off being charged at a below-cost rate of $3.79, and it would rise to $4.46 in July of 2022. Then the amount of water from 2,001 gallons up to 6,000 gallons per month, that would be charged at about the current rate, $4.46 per 1,000 gallons, and rise up to $5.25 per 1,000 in 2022. The next tier, from 6,001 gallons up to 30,000 gallons per month, that would be $5.06 per thousand, rising to $5.85 per thousand. And then for that increment of water over 30,000 gallons a month, that would have the highest rate associated with it, starting at $8.46 per thousand, rising to $9.25 per thousand. Now, why are the tiers set where they are? Why 6,000 gallons, for example? The reason is that currently about half of Board of Water Supply's customers use 6,000 gallons a month or less. So that seemed a very logical place to set that tier point. The 30,000 gallon tier is where the tier is currently set. It captures the top 3% of single-family residential users. So rates are one thing, but it doesn't do you much good. I think what you really care about is what's the impact to the water bill. So for single-family residential customers, this is an example bill of a low water user, somebody who's using 2,000 gallons per month. They're in that essential needs tier. Their water bill is currently $18.10 per month. It would actually drop a little bit, a dime in July of 2019, and then rise to just over $21 in July of 2022. For the customer that's using 6,000 gallons a month, and again, half of the board's customers use this or less per month, that bill is currently just under $36 per month, and it would rise to just over $42 per month in July of 2022. For the average water user, this is a customer using 9,000 gallons of water per month. Their bill is currently just a hair over $49, and that would rise over the period to about $10 more, $59.56 in July of 2022. And for the high water user, here's an example from someone using 35,000 gallons of water a month. Again, this is the top 3% of water users that are up in this category, a lot of water usage. They're paying a little under $200 a month for that water right now, and it would rise about $30 a month to $228 in July of 2022. Multi-unit residential customers. These are customers that live in complexes that have 3 units or more. And the water usage, these tiers are set based on the usage per dwelling unit. So the amount that each individual unit is using. You can see the tier structure right now is the first 0 to 9,000 gallons is charged at $4.42. Then from 9,001 up to 22,000 gallons per month, that's at $5.33. And then you see that top tier at more than 22,000 per month. Now, why are those tiers a little lower than what you see in single-family residential? The reason is that multi-unit residential customers don't have the same degree of outdoor irrigation, so the tiers are set lower to reflect their decreased usage. So what's being proposed is the same essential needs tier like you saw with single-family residential. The first 0 to 2,000 gallons per month is at the essential needs tier. And in this instance, it's starting off at $3.70 per thousand gallons, rising to $3.77 per thousand in 2022. From 2,001 gallons up to 4,000 gallons per month, that water usage would be at $4.35, rising to $4.43. From 4,001 gallons up to 10,000 gallons per month per dwelling unit, that's at $4.95 per thousand, rising to just over $5 per thousand. And then the top tier in multi-unit residential, more than 10,000 gallons per month per dwelling unit, that's at $5.90, rising to $5.98 per thousand. You're probably wondering, looking at this, saying, well, those increases for multi-unit residential look a lot less than what you just showed for single-family residential. So why is that? Well, the reason is that single-family residential customers have a lot more water usage outdoors. They put a lot more demands on the water system, and so the cost to serve single-family residential customers is higher than it is to serve multi-unit. So those those changes in demands result in a higher cost, and currently, single-family residential doesn't pay the full cost to serve them. They actually only pay about 88% of the cost to serve them. Where that money is being made up is multi-unit residential customers are paying more than their cost of service, and it's in effect a subsidy to single-family residential customers. So the direction from BWS's board was to make some adjustments to that, bring multi-unit residential down to their cost of service, and start to move single-family residential customers closer to their cost of service, going from about 88% up to about 95%. So still not all the way there. That's the reason you see these lower increases in multi-unit residential. For non-residential customers, these are hotels, restaurants, government customers, shopping centers, and so forth. A lot of different types of businesses and customers in there, different types. They use water differently. They have very different water demands. A small restaurant uses water differently than a large restaurant, for example. So it's very difficult to come up with a tiered rate structure like you see for residential for these types of customers, because their usage is all different. So they're charged a uniform rate right now. They pay the same rate regardless of how much water they use. Currently, that's $4.96 per 1,000 gallons, and that would rise up to $5.27 per 1,000 in July of 2022. There's some subsidies currently. For example, agricultural customers, they pay a reduced rate for their water usage. That's been in existence for about 50 years here, and the reason is to help encourage the production of on-island produce, have fresh produce in the markets, and help with food security. The other is recycled water. These are customers who use recycled wastewater from the Honouliuli water recycling facility, and that's used for irrigation and some industrial purposes. And they're encouraged to use that water by a reduced rate, and everybody benefits from that really, because it means that the potable water, the drinking water, can be preserved for those higher quality needs, avoiding the need to build new drinking water sources. There's also some new fee waivers being considered. This is in reference to something called the Water System Facilities Charge. This is a charge that people pay the very first time they are connected to the water system. So all of you are existing customers, that charge was already paid. This doesn't affect you, but if you were building a new home, or you were a developer building a new building, you would pay this for that connection. So there's some waivers being proposed to help encourage the construction of more affordable housing, for homeless housing, and to help those folks that need to retrofit their buildings with new fire sprinkler systems if they need a new water meter for that. If you look at the details of the Board of Water Supply's rate structure, you go on the website, you may see some other things. These don't affect most residential customers, but wanted to mention them, and there's more detail about them on all of the handouts that are here tonight. A fire meter standby charge. So currently, if you're in a building that has a fire sprinkler service and it has a fire meter, that water supply needs to be there 24/7, a massive amount of water all at once. Currently, the board charges for incidental usage not associated with fires. The proposal is to move to a monthly charge, a standby charge that's based on meter size. Again, the details on that are on some of the handouts. There's also some smaller separate systems that are separate water systems from the Board of Water Supply, but they have an emergency interconnection. There are some standby charges for the availability of that connection. I already talked about the water system facilities charge. There's also a couple of things in the rate structure that if costs in either the area of environmental regulation or power costs go up in any given year more than was budgeted, more than was anticipated, and additional revenue is needed, the board can adjust its rates by about a penny per 1,000 gallons to help cover that, and then they have to true it up at the end of the year. Again, though, I don't think either of those things have been used in many years, but they are there in the structure, and feel free to ask any questions if you have them about those. So where are things in the process? As Ernie mentioned, the Water Master Plan process started about 4 years ago. Really developed the framework, the blueprint for what's needed in the system overall. From there, the board has developed a 30-year infrastructure investment plan, and also there's shorter time frames associated with that, a 10-year, a 6-year, a 1-year. Summary of that plan is also in the back, along with a long-range financial plan to look at how to pay for all of this. These have been developed in conjunction with the stakeholder advisory group, conducting a number of customer surveys and guidance from the board. That all happened leading up into January, and then from January through March, the team evaluated a number of different water rate options and evaluated customer impacts associated with those, and then went to BWS's board in March with this draft rate package and said, is it ready to go out and seek customer input on? That's where we are. That's the process we're in now, is seeking your input. That's going to continue through the end of June. Then the board will consider that input and get back to its board in July, who will either vote to adopt that package or send it back for some additional consideration. So that's where the process is right now. As Ernie mentioned, this is the last of 4 public hearings that are being held. Thank you for being here and caring. If you don't want to provide testimony tonight, there are other ways to do it. You can mail in a letter. Here's the address. You can send an email. You can call in. All these are welcome. There's also some cards in the back tonight that you can fill out and leave. So please provide your input in any of those fashions. Also, a lot of information on the Board of Water Supply's website. All of the handouts that are here tonight are also available on the website. So with that, we're going to open it up to questions and answers about anything you've seen. Again, we'll do public testimony later, so this is an opportunity for question and answer. And we'll be bringing microphones to you, so if you just want to raise your hand with a question, we'll get a microphone over to you and hopefully get your questions answered. So who's got some questions? Great, we'll bring a microphone over to you.
How you doing? My name is Dan Petty. I live up here in Mililani, Mauka. So,
could you hold it a little bit closer, Dan?
Okay, so my name is Dan. I live up here in Mauka. So you went from getting bills every 2 months to once a month. Now you charge us twice the fees, okay? I'm told by some of your staff that it's because the sewer on some of those bills were too high. It doesn't stop the fact that they're still going to have to pay the same amount of money for their sewer as well as their water, but we being charged twice as much as a fee, which we shouldn't be. I don't have a problem with you raising some of the rates, but if you went back to every bi-monthly, whatever 2 months for the fees, then you can raise the rates and people probably wouldn't be so upset with you guys.
Thank you, sir. It'll come on.
Oh, okay. You can hear me? Thank you, sir, for that question. The reason, I'll move here so you can see me clearly. The reason for that, and you're right, we used to have a water bill every other month, so what we call bi-monthly billing. And back in 2013, actually the request started earlier, years earlier, that the City Council and the Department of Environmental Services, which is also located on our water bill. Remember, you have for most of our customers on this island, over 80%, they have 2 components there, the water bill and the sewer bill. And because the sewer bill was getting larger, they wanted us to look at moving to monthly bills, to bill more monthly. And in the industry across the country, more frequent billing is actually one of the best practices to make it easier for people to remember to set the money aside to pay that bill. And if you look at your water bill, which also has the sewer on it, I looked at mine last night. My water bill is 1/3 of the sewer bill. But together it's over $100. I think I'm out at about $150 almost per month. If I had to wait every 2 months, then I'd be looking at making sure I had $300 to pay that bill every 3 months. So that was one of the reasons we made that shift. And I hear what you're saying. If we could separate the bills and had the water only on the bill, bi-monthly billing would be cheaper for us and easier to manage. And because we have to bill monthly now, so we process over 2 million bills a year, the cost has also increased. So the staff, the printing, the processing cost has all gone up. So I hear what you're saying, sir. That's a very good point. I'd love to return to bi-monthly bills, but we're going to have to try to separate the sewer off of us before that happens. I'm with you. But before your next question, I'd just like to recognize some people in the audience today. Former Representative Marilyn Lee from Mililani. Thank you, ma'am, for your service to our community. And also we have, I thought Dean Hazama was here. Is he in the back? The chair of our Honolulu Planning Commission. So thank you, Dean, for your service to our community. Mahalo. Yes, sir.
Okay, so the other question I have is, the single-family homes are paying way more than the multiple uses. For example, hotels, okay? Hotels, as I saw it up here, are paying a small amount compared to what we're paying. They're using probably a lot more water than we are using at home per unit, okay? Because I know when I go on vacation somewhere, I don't worry about the water. Most people don't. They come out here, they take hour-long showers or whatever it is. Those hotels should be on the same rate as us single families. We should not have to subsidize them. You should be able to charge them the same rate based on their water usage.
That's a good point. If we can bring that slide back up on it's actually they pay the non-residential rate, and you're paying, and like me, the single-family residential rate, which is tiered. So the more water we use, the more we pay per 1,000 gallons if we get to the higher tiers. But for the non-residential, that includes the hotels, hospitals, government buildings, industrial customers. They're on a flat rate. So they, if you can go to the non-residential, please. There you go. So basically, they are going to pay a higher cost for the meter charge because we're changing that. The bigger meters are usually these hotels. They have bigger meters. But on the usage rate, they're a flat rate. And the reason for that, I don't know, Dave, you mentioned, the non-residential customers, when we looked at what they're paying compared to what it costs to provide the service to these customers as compared to the single family, the homeowners. Like Dave mentioned, for the homeowners were getting subsidized by other customer types. One of the categories is the non-residential customer. We found that they're paying 120% of the cost it takes to provide service to them. And one of the reasons is, when you think about it, with homeowners, when we're at home, we're using water. But during the day, children going to school, going to the job to help pay the mortgage and pay the water bill and the sewer bill. But we're leaving, so when we get back home, we start using water. So what we call the peak demands are higher among the residential customers than the non-residential customers because their water use is more steady. So the system capacity to serve them is less expensive. So they're subsidizing us right now at a tune of 120%, 20% more than the cost it takes to provide them the service. So the board weighed that carefully and thought, well, let's keep the flat rate for the non-residential customers. Let's try to bring that 120% cost that they're paying for right now, 20% more than what it takes to serve them, and lower that to 117%. Still require them to help the other customers. So that's one of the reasons we kept that rate. The other thing that was very difficult, and we didn't feel we were quite ready for it, is if you look at the examples of the non-residential customers, there is a lot of different customers, non-residential customers in the system, different categories. Like this says hotels, restaurants, government buildings, shopping centers, hospitals, retail, industrial customers. So it's really, if we had to set up rates for all those classes, we'd have a lot of different rates, structures, rate schedules for each of the customer classes. So for now, we're keeping them all in this large category, but keep in mind they're still going to pay 117% of the cost it takes to provide the service. And that additional money is going to help pay for the subsidy for single-family customers and also recycled and non-potable customers too. I hope I answered your question, but
Not according to what you're saying. I mean, if they're paying $4.96 and I'm paying $18 or whatever, how are they subsidizing me? I don't understand that.
what we do is part of the rate development, we look at the cost it takes to provide service to our different customer types. Single-family customer, multi-family or multi-unit residential, non-residential, agricultural customers, recycle and non-potable customers. And that analysis determined that actually for this category of customers, they're actually paying more than it takes to provide the service to them. They're paying at a higher amount. It doesn't look higher.
It doesn't look like it at all.
Yeah, but when we look at the actual dollars collected for the water that they use, the revenue we get from this customer class is actually more than it would cost to provide them the service. So thank you, sir.
All right. We'll get a microphone over to you, sir.
Dave, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, I think you answered it. Really, it's as Ernie said, that peak that happens, that residential customers, they in the morning we all get dressed at the same time, shower at the same time, get ready. That puts a big peak in our water usage, and it's that peak that the water system has to be designed to meet. Non-residential customers use water much more evenly throughout the day. So while they may be using more water, that the demand on the system in terms of needing to build it really big to meet those peaks isn't there. So that's why there's a cost difference when we look at it and look at the actual, what's called the cost of service. So, yeah.
Hi, Jim Diliberti. I live up in Mauka as well. Two questions. One is it this board that's appointed by the mayor that's going to ultimately make the determination as to whether this proposal goes forward? And there's no oversight on that other than nobody, I guess. Is that right?
Well, the board members are accountable to carry out the mission of the Board of Water Supply. They are appointed by the mayor, and they have to go through a vetting process or approval by the city council.
Right, but they're not elected representatives.
They're not elected.
Okay. Second of all, Mr. Ebersol, you mentioned that one of the goals of this plan was to have gradual increases. Well, I'm not a math major, but when I kind of did some rough figuring there on the numbers from 2019 to 2022, the meter charge, I think, went up some 30%, and if you use 6,000 gallons, it went up 20%. If I were to tell you that your mortgage would go up 30% over the next 4 years, or an airplane ticket, I think the point here is that it's small numbers, but it's still in percentage terms a very significant increase.
Again, yes, on this is the fixed charge, which you also pay the usage charge for the water you consume. So this is going up, and you're probably a 3/4 or 5/8 inch meter, so from $9.26 to $12. So, yeah, I see what you're saying.
30% increase.
Yeah, but when you think about it, it's $3 more.
I understand that, but
period.
in percentage terms, it is not I would submit to you that is not a gradual increase.
So what we did was we looked at the combination of both, because you have the fixed charge and the usage charge, and we looked at the total bill. Like in this example, 6,000 gallons a month, which happens to be my family's usage per month. And that's about right. I pay about $35.78 a month. It would go up over the 5-year period. This includes the fixed charge and the usage charge, because you have to look at both together, because that ends up being the total bill, total water bill. It's about
Somewhere in the
5%.
neighborhood of 20%.
Yeah, we're about 5% a year, because there's actually only 4 years of actual rate increases. But if you look at it in pieces, then yeah, on the billing charge, or we're going to call it the customer charge now, that does look bigger on a percentage basis. But the total bill is what our customers have to pay. Thank you, sir.
Other questions? Yeah, back to you.
Okay. So now the water is going to go up. You want to raise the water rates. But what about the sewer? Now, you already mentioned, and we all know that our sewer rates 2 to 3 times higher than our water. Is the sewer rates going to go up? Because that would cost most of the bill is the sewer. Is that going to go up at the same time? Because if you're raising the rates just for the water, how about the sewer side?
First of all, we're the Board of Water Supply. The sewer is the responsibility of the Department of Environmental Services. So I would want to be careful I don't speak for them, because I really don't speak for them. I have no control over the sewer bill. Yes, they're probably going to increase their rates. When they do that, I don't know. What's happening on the sewer side, there's an EPA consent decree that mandates they have to make improvements under a certain timeline. It's quite extensive improvements, including going to secondary treatment at our big treatment plants. You know, you got one at Honouliuli, one at Sand Island. They also have Kailua right now, and Waianae. And they have Waihawa too. So they have to go to secondary treatment. And they're also making massive improvements to the sewer collection system. But whether or not they do the increase, I am sorry, I can't really answer that question tonight. We'd be glad to check with Environmental Services.
They should be here. They're a part of the bill.
You know, they're part of the bill, but it's really done as a service to the city and for efficiency, which try to save ratepayers on both sides more money, because then it's one bill instead of one set of postage costs, one printing of the bill instead of doubling that. But again, Dan, I really, it'd be difficult for me to speak on their behalf.
Okay, so like he was saying, it could be as much as 30% on the water bill over the 3-4 years.
Actually, we're thinking that the average, so this is a 6,000 gallon customer. For the average customer, 9,000 gallons, it's about 5% a year for 4 years, about 21%.
But if they're going to follow the same as what you guys are, then that could be double or triple than what you guys are raising your rates on.
Again,
that's why they should be here to at least answer that question as well.
Thank you, sir. Good point. Well, the next time we do this, maybe we'll invite them. Thank you.
Other questions?
One of the things, you know, for us, it's been very important to, when we look at rate increases, we want to do it carefully, because we know everybody's struggling, and that's why the essential needs tier is to try to help our, especially those that are really fixed incomes, but they also might be small families that don't use, 10% of our customers use 2,000 gallons or less. So we really, so sir, you're going to see probably the lowest increases for the single-family residential customers. Good job, 2,000 gallons or less. The other thing that essential needs tier does, it's a motivation, positive motivation to encourage people to try to use less water, put more of your usage in that first tier, that essential needs tier. Then you can look, because that essential needs tier is being charged at below cost rates per 1,000 gallons. Dick, you had a question?
We'll get you a microphone. No question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bernie thought you had a question.
I interrupted you. Oh, okay.
You got to be careful going to auctions too, don't you? Other questions? Great opportunity to ask.
And it doesn't have to be on water rates. We don't come out to the community as often. We are at the neighborhood boards every month. But if you have any questions about anything related to BWS, we'd be glad to answer it too. Okay.
I'm Michael Dow, Neighborhood Board 25. How are you going to decide which water mains to repair first?
Very good question. I'm going to ask my head of my Water Resources Division, Barry, to explain how we did the prioritization process in the Water Master Plan.
Mike. So as part of the Water Master Plan that we started in 2013, we did a comprehensive look at the evaluation of the whole water system. So pumps, reservoirs, but the biggest asset we have is pipelines. And so we looked at all the pipelines, we evaluated them through a condition assessment. We came up with, actually CDM did that, but we evaluated each pipe by a concept called risk. And risk is the consequence of failure times the likelihood of failure. Basically, the simple answer is if it's breaking a lot, that's the one that we want to fix, right? And that's how we kind of determined how or which pipes to fix. But through this concept of likelihood and consequence, we came up with a more descriptive method on how we would identify them. So likelihood is based on the number of main breaks, and we have a pretty good database on what pipes broke, what was the cause of it, and the primary cause is generally corrosion and ground sediment and internal pressure. And so the materials that we use for some of these pipes, our design life is about 100 years, but some of these don't last that long for various reasons. So the likelihood is one. The consequence is who are we serving? So if we're serving like a hospital, those pipes cannot be breaking that often because then you disrupt hospital services and surgeries and stuff. The economic centers of Waikiki, the transportation centers of the airport and the harbors, those are high consequence. Y&I, for instance, because it's a one pipeline going in. We have a main break there. It shuts the water off for a whole day for the entire coast, most of the coast. So we take that into consideration, and those are the main criterias, and then we identify what pipes that are the highest risk, and so we know which pipes we need to replace. We just got to get to replacing them. One evaluation that CDM did was they said that if we could replace 200 miles of the highest risk pipelines throughout the island, we could reduce our main breaks by half. But it takes years to actually replace them. And we can't do that. We're at 6 miles per year. We want to ramp it up to 21 miles per year, and we're giving ourselves 10 years to do that. And so the plan identifies what we need to do. The rates provide us the funding on which to do that, and then it's internal capacity to put those projects out. So those three pillars all kind of come together to determine how fast and which ones that we replace. Our goal is to reduce main breaks, and if we can replace those highest priority, highest risk mains, we feel that over time we will get those main breaks down.
All right, I see other hands up. We'll get you a microphone.
I have a question about the pesticides that are down in the aquifer. What's the life expectancy of them? And how often do we get the report that tells the concentration of those in our water?
Thank you, Representative. I'd like Mr. Erwin Kawata to come up and help answer the question. Mr. Kawata, in the meantime, our mission is to provide safe, dependable, and affordable water to our community now and into the future. The first word is safe, because there are many places around the world you can go into major cities with millions of people. You can't drink the water out of the faucet. But here, safe is our number one component of our mission statement. And Erwin,
Could you do me a favor and repeat the question briefly? Keone will get you the microphone.
What is the life expectancy of the pesticides that remain in the water of the aquifer? And how often do we get a report on the concentration in our water?
Okay, as far as the life expectancy, we've been treating since the 1990s. It was first discovered in the 1880s. The concentrations haven't decreased at all, so we expect it to continue probably for the next several years. In terms of the monitoring, we do it monthly. Initially, we did as far as the treatment, we did weekly tests, collected enough data to understand how the treatment facility is working, and now we're at a point that we perform the test monthly, and the data is available to whoever would like a copy of the results.
And actually, in July, we'll do our water quality report. Maybe you can explain that. Thank you.
Every year, we distribute a water quality report, and that information, as far as the test results, is available. But if you'd like to have individual, months, you can always call the water quality division, and we'll be happy to give you a copy.
For those customers, these are customers that receive a water bill will get this water quality report. If you live in a condominium, you may not get a water bill. Anybody here that don't get a water bill mailed to their home? So what you can do is actually go onto our website, boardofwatersupply.com, look for water quality reports, and if you enter your address, it'll give you the copy of the water quality report that serves your area. That includes what water sources serve your community and what has been found in the water in the past year. Thank you.
And Keone, I think there was a question right there.
Yes. Is there any plan to try to coordinate with the other, like Department of Transportation, so that when you fix a water pipe, I know this is really, really difficult.
It's
really
a good question.
difficult. But, right after you fix it, then they tear up the road because the road is supposed to be repaved by the city transportation department. And is there any plan to try, especially on the main roads, when you know far in advance that you are going to replace this water pipe in next July, that you can talk to the other people so you only repave it once?
That's a great question. It's been an ongoing challenge. We do coordinate. What happens is there are two things that are important to our community: good roads and also a reliable water system, because water is necessary for life. The roads happen on a different time cycle. Usually the roads last about 10 years before they come back and have to redo the road. And the road project, the repaving project, if you notice, and I think they did Meheula Parkway here, the city did that project. It happened pretty quickly. I mean, it did seem long, but it happened pretty quickly. When you do a water line, remember it's underground. Sometimes, 6 feet underground. So we have to dig a trench. We have to lay the pipe, hook up all the meters. So those projects don't get done in 6 months. They can take 3 years to get done. So just a different level of effort. And what happens, and I respect the need for good roads, and that's important. And sometimes you see after they do the road resurfacing, there's a leak, and we have to dig up the road. What happens is the road work, if you remember, if you were home when they were doing the road in front of your street, they also have to do something called vibrate to compact the AC, the asphalt, to reach a certain standard or specification. That vibratory roller shakes the ground so hard, and if our pipes are old underneath there, what we're finding is it can start to leak, and we have to dig up the road, unfortunately. And I'm really sorry about that, but but we do come back with a permanent repair that we hire a paving contractor. We do a temporary for the short term, and within a month we're back with a permanent repair that hopefully is as good as the road was after the city did the job. So my apologies, but that's kind of the challenges. You need good roads, but that happens on a much frequent basis, and we do try to coordinate, but sometimes leaks happen, and we have to deal with those. We try to, once they pave a road for a CIP or a pipeline construction project, we wait at least 2 years. I think it's about 2 years. Maybe Jason Takaki, head of our capital projects, you want to add anything to that?
Get you a microphone. I'll get it. I'll get it.
But yeah, what you bring up is a valid concern. We do meet monthly with the city departments as well as the other utilities, gas company, Hawaiian Electric, Verizon, to try and coordinate our projects. But as Barry was talking about, how do we prioritize which pipes we replace? Many times this doesn't fit with the plans for other utilities to do replacement and for whether it's the Department of Design and Construction or the Department of Facilities Maintenance to do road repaving. So, but we do try our best to coordinate. Whenever a project is planned for repaving, they do come to us and ask us if we have plans to do a water main replacement in that area, particularly if they're doing concrete pavement, which is very difficult for us to work under. If we have a main break under the new concrete pavement, then yes, we do our best to coordinate with them. But yes, it's very difficult, but we're trying our best.
Good question. Thank you.
Other questions?
Hi, good evening, Ernest. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you, Dean.
Have you ever considered, and I understand, I really feel for the residents because we're going to get hit with both a sewage and a water increase, and the timing is really bad. Have you considered a charter amendment to allow the city to float bonds to partially pay for this modernization project? Probably not for the whole thing, but that way we can, for both the sewer and the water projects at the same time. I know it would require a charter amendment for you to accept those bond funds, but that would provide some relief to the residents as far as not having to raise their rates, at the same time, because it is going to be a significant increase in their bill.
That's a good question, and what we're trying to do is get to a place where the rates for the water side, it goes up in smaller increments, so there's not a large increases at one time. Like Dave said, over the 5-year period, we're projecting from the water rate proposal here to collect an additional $60 million. That's not enough to pay for all the operations and also the capital program. Because what we're going to do is actually we can float revenue bonds. So we have the ability, with the support of the Director of Finance, Budget and Finance, and the support of the council, we can actually float our own revenue bonds to actually, it's a combination of cash and revenue. Many, many years ago, we might have had city floating general obligation bonds that the city would float, but in more of the last few decades, we've been issuing revenue bonds that basically we have the obligation for repayment of the debt of the bond. So a combination of borrowing and also SRF funds. The EPA State Department of Health State Revolving Loan Fund is very cost effective. We don't quite get as much money as we would like to because there isn't that much money available to the state of Hawaii, but we leverage as much as we can. And that effective interest rates are around 1 to 1.5%.
As far as you know, does ENV have the ability to float revenue bonds as well?
They do also. They float bonds because the environmental services, they are an enterprise operation, so they're responsible for the debt service repayment. The city helps them to float the bonds on their behalf, and they repay it through the wastewater charges. Thank you. Good question. So the capital program, what we do is we leverage both rate revenue and borrowing through bonds or state revolving loan to basically spread the cost out over time. So it isn't only the existing ratepayers that take the full cost. Good question. Thank you.
Other questions? None? Going once. Okay, I'm not going to say going twice, going 3 times. Let's then move into,
3 people that wish to testify.
okay, let's then move into public comment. And I think when you came in, you had the opportunity to check a box if you wanted to provide some public testimony. Now is the opportunity to do that. We'll ask you to come up to the microphone. If you didn't indicate that when you came in and you still want to provide public testimony, absolutely welcome to. Ask everyone to limit their comments to 3 minutes or less. And rather than reading names, I'll say if you would like to testify, come on up to the microphone. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Bill Rudich. I live in Mililani, Mauka.
Could I ask you to get just a little closer, Bill? Thank you.
My name is Bill Rudich. I live here in Mililani, Mauka. And I don't disagree that you definitely need to do some work on your systems. The leaks in the water main breaks here, to me, are unacceptable in terms of the loss of water and things that are going on. That being said, my concern is that you're asking for a tremendous amount of money to be generated over this. And the question is, are you spending all the money that you have on what's basically part of your regular charter? Specifically, my concern is in going through your budget and things, you're spending over $1 million on consultants, litigation, things like that related to Red Hill, which to me seems to be a part of, under the purview of the Department of Health, the EPA, not the Board of Water Supply, which is not a regulatory agency. And I think before this type of rate increase should be approved, there needs to be a full accounting publicly of how much you have spent, how much you plan to spend in this area, and compare that to what you're saying your shortfall is.
Great. Thank you for your comment. All right. Next, come on up. Welcome.
So, Jim Diliberti, and I'm going to follow on Bill's comment here. I'm a recovering lawyer, so I took the liberty to pull the statute. And although Mr. Lau talks about how providing safe drinking water is within his charter, I don't find that at all in the statute. He is to provide the water and to collect and receive, expend, and account for all sums of money derived from the operation thereof, and other monies provided. The director of the Department of Health is the one who is responsible for enforcing the drinking water standards. And I, like Mr. Rudich, object to the fact that I think there has been an abuse of authority to spend $1.1 million, $100,000 to a toxic tort litigation firm in San Francisco to get involved in the Red Hill matter when that is already being examined by both the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the State Department of Health. So, like Mr. Rudich, I would say I would ask for an accounting of those sums and then maybe a revision as to the amount that's needed to move forward. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else like to provide public testimony? Okay. Seeing none then, Ernie, any closing thoughts before we wrap up for the evening?
First of all, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. I know it's tough on a weeknight and dealing with traffic and commuting to and from work from here. I'd just like to end with a quote from this book, The Ripple Effect, The Fate of Freshwater in the 21st Century. And this is by Alex Prudhomme. By the second decade of the 21st century, most people have not run out of potable H2O yet, but they continue to take it for granted, wasted, contaminated, and mismanagement. These practices are unsustainable. A growing number of hydrologists and economists and diplomats warn that localized water problems could coalesce and tip the Earth into a full-blown water crisis. To forestall an emergency, we must redefine how we think of water and how we use it. In short, we must learn to treat deceptively simple H2O for what it really is, the most valuable resource on the earth. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. We'll be around for a little bit. Feel free to visit any of the stations. Also, I'd encourage you to grab some food. Either eat it here. We've also got some plates and things so you can take some home. You're welcome to that. And again, thank you for caring and coming out tonight.